Good afternoon, I'm Brigid Taylor and this is Currency Wars. Today we've got a full house. I'm joined by Andre Eerenstein from RMB, Alers from Kaon Capital and Andre Cilliers from Treasury One. First we're going to have a look and see what's happened on the markets. The biggest developed world economies continue to face headwinds, with the US Fed more dovish and expecting only another 2 hikes. Meanwhile, the ECB's Draghi is not expecting any further cuts to the rates, despite their lower growth and inflation expectations in the Eurozone. This has seen the dollar sell off globally and has favourably filtered through to the South African rand. Meanwhile, the local political infighting and the comments confirming what is now being branded as government capture is putting the spotlight on the ruling party and how they are going to remedy the issues at hand. More importantly, this potentially positions South Africa to place more emphasis on prudent spending that could benefit the currency and rates going forward. The Moody's visit this week could not have come at a more volatile time. However, issues are best dealt with now rather than left into the closet. And South Africa is now positioned to rectify the risks to our economy and enforce a collective push to aim for sustainable growth that will benefit all South Africans in the longer term. The rand initially weakened overnight before opening much stronger this morning as a result of the global dovishness expressed by the Fed and the Eurozone. 15.20 remains the big support level to watch before we potentially trade stronger sub 15 once again. But before we go into that, we are going to chat to our guests, and I'd like to welcome Andre Eerenstein from RMB, Alers from Kaon Capital, and Andre Cilliers. Guys, it's been a volatile week, and it's certainly been a volatile year. We were saying just now how we're all exhausted. It's only going into April and we're already exhausted. So let's look at and start front and center, because the news that came out last night, Deputy Finance Minister talking about the involvement or this government capture scenario is just gaining momentum. What is your view with regards to, just let's clear out the noise. How much impact, negative impact, do you think that has and has seen on the currency?
I think it's got a lot of negative impact, and eventually it will impact on investor sentiment. At this point in time, I think we can just say one thing. Whether Mr. Zuma is guilty or not, the position as president at this point in time seems to be compromised. And as I once again reiterate, guilty or not, he should come out and make a statement. The country deserves clarity on this. The world deserves clarity on this. So I'm not putting him on the spotlight. I'm not saying that he is guilty. I'm saying we need a statement.
You serve the peoples. Give us a statement.
He's a servant of the people. The number one is not being served by the people. He serves the people. So we need something from his side.
Okay, so let's get so looking at that, how much of that do you think is noise that is purely as a result of us living here locally? And do you agree with Andre with regards to the fact that we're probably going to see fallout, or do you think that it's a good thing that we're seeing this coming out of the closet now, Andre?
Well, I think it's removing uncertainty. In one way or another, we need to make sure that happens. Investor sentiment wants clarity, they want transparency, and in order for that to happen, things need to play out, and something needs to be done and something needs to be said. Just keeping quiet just keeps everybody jittery.
Well, that's the thing, and I think, Luke, maybe you can jump in here in terms of the presumption or assumptions that have been made, and this has been going on for some time. It's not as though this is news, but now we've had the confirmation. So just talk us through that view. Do you think, in terms of investor sentiment from a global perspective as well as locally, do you think this is a good or a bad thing?
I think it's ultimately a good thing from airing the dirty laundry and actually figuring out what's been happening behind the scenes. There's been a lot of talk about it. There's been a lot of assumptions made, and now we're seeing what's actually been happening. So I think what you saw with the rand overnight essentially was an initial sort of major weakening of the rand, and then as people digested it, they think, well, what's actually happening is we're getting a bit more clarity on what's been happening and where we can go from here. It sort of gives us a point to start working towards whatever the outcome is. There's less uncertainty ultimately regarding what is actually happening behind the scenes.
And forcing the hand of government to make, like Andre says, somebody has to say something. We need to make a firm stand. They've got the meeting this weekend. Hopefully something will come out of that. But let's move over to the ratings agencies. So we've got Moody's here this week. Interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of comments come out with regards to the budget that was presented, Pravin Gordhan's visit to the UK last week, and then now with all of this political turmoil, whether or not that budget can be implemented and can create the sustainability and the upside growth that we're looking for. Andre, what do you think in terms of this Moody's visit?
Yeah, I think it's a key one, obviously, and I think when you look at it, Moody's will look and say, right, what's the plan? But like anything else, implementation is something that's key. So the budget itself, it's a good plan. But can they follow through? Is the ability to follow through? Will they follow through? That's what Moody's are looking for. And at this point in time, given the volatility, given the risks that are out there, certainly, it's big question mark on whether implementation can happen.
But the interesting thing, and maybe Andre, you can jump in here as well, is you mentioned it earlier, is that some of this noise that's coming out of the closet, particularly with regards to this talk of government capture, has been aimed at those entities that haven't been profitable and have drained a lot of resources from South Africa, and we're not seeing that productivity from those. So there's that manipulation in the system that's now actually openly being talked about. If that comes to fruition and we do start to see a change of tact, do you think we have enough impetus in government to get the right people or make the right decisions around the likes of parastatals, SOEs, etc., so that the control is actually for the better of the country and not a manipulation?
If you look at Eskom, I think then, first of all, the reins has been pulled in. So I think, yes, there we do have the ability to actually do that. SAA actually came out and said that they could be profitable in 2017, 2018. So there, once again, I'm confident. But the budget, the implementation is vital. Two people that should oversee that. The one is Mr. Pravin Gordhan, his assistant, his deputy minister. Look at the last 2 days, look at the last 3 days, both of them are in a tight spot. Do we have the ability to actually implement? That's the one that Moody's will be looking at. If we don't stick to that plan, I'm sorry, we're up for a downgrade and maybe not just one notch.
Well, that's it. So what is your view with regards to this, the view of the role of Pravin Gordhan as the finance minister and the role of Treasury? Do you think that this is a political issue, or do you think that this is something that is key in terms of Moody's view going forward, so that uncertainty about that role and the person that heads up that role?
Well, I think agree with Andre. I think the key thing is the credibility of the finance minister and his ability to actually do what he said he wants to do. And with all the noise around what's going on around the investigation into him, etc., it's going to take his eye off the ball somewhat. And that's just a natural thing. He's going to be looking to protect himself. And the problem is, is he going to be focusing on protecting his career or getting the country back into shape? And that's the key. So it's taken the focus away for him, and I think that's something that Moody's will be looking at.
Quickly, we're going to go on to the interest rate decisions. So we've had ECB, FOMC, we now have the South African Reserve Bank next week. Andre, talk to us about the bond markets. What's happening? What is the view? Do you think that we're likely to see a hike based on the fact that our inflation number is above that 6%, especially based on what we've seen coming out of FOMC and the dovish statements out of the ECB, as well as China? So what is your view with regards to that?
Yeah, my view is that we don't have an interest rate hike today. I think the rand has kind of come back off its highs, and I think the last meeting, the MPC found that the inflation risks were broadly balanced. I think
but don't you think that that's maybe because we're above the inflation band? Is it not something that's
spot inflation is something they can't really do anything about. We've got to look at where's inflation going to peak, and from there, what's happening to inflation expectations? Are they being dislodged? And I think, given the 50 basis point hike last time, the rand has come back. Yes, spot inflation's gone up a bit. We're going to see food prices going up, as a result of the drought. But higher interest rates are not going to solve that problem. So we're going to see, in my view, unchanged decision, exceptionally hawkish. And we'll see how the rand develops.
Okay, so sorry guys, I have to actually move on to the putting it on the block. I wish we had more time to chat about this, but just quickly jump in with regards to your PPI view, Luke.
So I think, with the inflation side of things, I think PPI is sitting at about 7.6% at the moment. So I think that is going to feed through to inflation. So I think they've got a difficult decision to make. I think it's not an easy decision. I think there is a risk, given that the FOMC was unchanged, that they won't change rates, but the feed through to inflation from PPI, I think, will come through, and it's going to make it a difficult decision.
So there's still those upside risks. Okay, we're going to move on. I'm going to open with you, don't worry. We're going to ask the guy to put it on the block, and we're going to pull out the big guns. Okay, Andre, give us your view.
ECB gave the MPC a breather. They can wait around. Dollar rand trading between 15.30. I don't think it will break down below that. So 15.30, 15.70, Euro Rand 17.10, 17.60, and the pound Rand 22.80, 23.30.
Sure. Okay, Luke.
So I think on the dollar rand, I think we've got a key level here at 55. I think if it trades below that, I think we're going to go down to around the sort of 30 level with a key level at 20. So I think if we break through the 20 level, you could see it go even further down.
What do you think will be the impetus to push us through that level?
Well, I think that at the end of the day, the dollar is strengthening as well. It's not just a rand story. It's the dollar, is weakening, and that is going to be something that's going to drive the rand as well, obviously. And I think given the FOMC, the Fed decision, the dollar should weaken a bit further.
Okay, Andre.
Yeah, I think I'll be a little bit more optimistic. I think we'll see dollar rand trading between 15 and 15.75. Obviously, if there are
narrow that's wide.
Well, 15 and a half.
Okay.
I think we will see some strength come in, and I think local factors are also going to play into that. And I think Euro rand pretty much the same sort of levels as where we are.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you today. I really appreciate the frank discussion that we could have. So in conclusion, the trading strategy for this week is mixed. We have Andre Cilliers, who thinks that we're going to see weakness in the rand, looking predominantly at the local factors because of the noise coming out of both the government as well as the Moody's decision this week. And then we've got Andre and Luke looking for possibility of a break below that 15.20, but really looking at what happens from the global perspective. So I think key for us this week is really to look at the drivers from whether or not we see a hike out of our central bank, what the global economy is doing, particularly with regards to interest rates going forward and the dollar weakness. And if we don't see that, the noise in our local economy may see the rand weaken slightly. So be cautious this week and good luck. If you'd like to send any questions or comments, you're welcome to do so at Currency Wars 410 or to myself at Kaon Capital for your personal response to the FX markets. Until next week, good luck in the trenches.